Hello and welcome to Access Paranormal, and tonight I'm joined with James Anthony.
Good evening.
Long time no see, James.
Well, we've seen each other, but we've not done anything spooky for a while, have we?
No, but it must be about 5-6 weeks since I last saw you.
I think it was just before Christmas.
Just
and
before
unfortunately, I had
Christmas.
this awful, probably still hear from my voice a little bit, the awful flu that was going round.
Yeah. Oh, well,
So I'm
I've got
fine
that.
now, but I think it's just, there's loads of people had it though, hasn't there, you know?
God, yeah.
Yeah. Did you manage to escape it?
No.
Oh, right, so you had it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it where my head felt like it was a piece of lead.
Yeah, it's been been absolutely rotten. So I ended up spending the whole New Year in bed, just so tired, you know. So and I think obviously the weather's not been very nice with the snow and stuff, isn't it? So
Awful.
yeah.
Anyway, should we get back to the show instead
Yes,
of
instead of our illnesses. Yeah.
But you started in this astral projection stuff, haven't you? You know, learning.
Well, I've been
things like that.
so I've been interested in astral projection for a really long time, and it's not something I'd really read up on.
Yeah.
And then about a year ago, I was you know, when you just start reading different things and everything like that, and I think kind of us being interested in the paranormal and you know the spirit world and the occult and things, it was something that I kind of thought I'd love to learn more about that. So I started kind of reading about it, and that kind of drew me onto different kind of techniques and methods which you can use to allegedly astral project. And basically the principle behind it, as I understand it, and there's different interpretations of it that people have, but my understanding of it is that what happens is that when you do it, your kind of soul, your consciousness, projects out of your physical body onto a different vibrational level. So so what they would say an astral plane. And when you become good at this, you can actually do it under, you know, you actually control how you do it.
Yeah.
And you can travel into different places and different dimensions and everything such as that, and experience different things. And a lot of it goes back to, you know, meditation and focusing the mind. And at first, when I first started doing it, I really enjoyed it purely because the actual process to try and do it is really, really relaxing. You know, will relax all your body and focus on your breathing and centering yourself. So actually, it was, you know, if you do a job like mine, where you've got a very busy job and responsibilities and things.
It's like I'm doing yoga.
In a way, it is. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and yoga obviously is about the breath and the mind and balance. And using the postures as part of that, you know, rather than, I mean, it is an exercise obviously, but the founding of that was really much more spiritual in origin, and that's when I started doing it. And the thing is, so I do it most days, and I have to say that the stages that you go through in astral projection as a person, there's various different stages which I'll talk about in a minute. But at first, it was a lot of the times I got that relaxed that I just fell asleep. So you know, you just nod off. But what happened then and I remember this really profoundly. So they call it when you start to project what's called a vibrational stage. And I remember the first time it happened, and I'd been listening to some. I tend to listen rather than music. I'll listen to tones, so it might be the same tone that just resonates, and focus on that tone. And I was really just very, very deeply relaxed, and I suddenly felt this kind of feeling of almost as though this vibrational phase. It's very hard to describe. All like waves going from the very top of my head right the way down to my feet. Waves of almost energy going across. And then as my eyes were shut, I then started to see the most vivid kind of, you know, you see a colourful kaleidoscope of colours, so vivid. And I knew it was happening. And the hard thing that people say is when that starts happening, your natural reaction sometimes is to, jolt and wake yourself up. So I didn't, and I went with it. And the only way I can describe it is that I almost felt like I started to float. And it was the most surreal experience of this feeling of kind of literally like you're starting to lift up, and it was so peaceful, and I've had that quite a few times, but it takes a long time to get to that level, you know, and actually to get further than that.
I was going to ask you then, because obviously your job is quite full on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you get from that full on? Because you must come home and
Oh,
your
I do.
mind's,
So,
your
yeah,
mind's still
absolutely.
racing
Yeah, of
for the
course.
work.
Yeah.
How do you get from that to being able to relax the way you are?
Well, the interesting thing is that I used to have a real difficulty with this, and we've spoken about it before. Because like one of the things I used to enjoy about when we used to do your group, and I was part of that group, and we used to do night stuff, is that it's such a different thing than what my actual job is. That you're not the thought process is very, very different, because you're focused on what's happening right immediately now. Now, if you suffer from anxiety, which I certainly do, one of the things that works really well for me is having mindfulness in the moment. So we're always talking. I come and visit you sometimes, and I've come on my bike, haven't I?
Yeah.
Or I'm out for a walk or whatever. But the reason I do it is because I'm focusing on the moment. So what actually happens, how I can get into that relaxed state and I'm quite stressed, is I focus. It sounds really weird. I have this box that I use, and I visualise this box, and it's like and you'll think about the box, and you'll put any thoughts or anything that's in your mind. You go, right, I'm going to put this in this box now and lock it up. And it's in there, it's fine, it's not going to go away, but I can leave it in there while I'm focusing on that. So anything that I've been worried about or been thinking about that day, I'll dump it all in the box and shut the lid. And in my mind, I visualise a big padlock going on it. And that goes out there. And then what you have to do is you have to focus on yourself. And it takes a while, because your mind will kind of fire all these random thoughts in, because that's what it does.
And your mind's your own worst enemy.
Yeah. And you've almost got, and this is why it takes so long, because you've got to, it's like any kind of meditation, you have to get to that point where you can just let them pass and focus just on almost on nothing. And if I say to you now, think of nothing, it's a really hard thing to do. So that's why you use the relaxation techniques, the breathing techniques, and everything like that to get you, and it just takes practice, really, to be honest. So when I first started, it was really, really hard, but now, because I've been doing it for quite a while, it was, it's much easier to get into it. Now, you remember when we first started the show 5 years ago almost now, isn't it?
August 2020.
Yeah. And we had Yoga Steve on, who you know and I know, Yoga Steve. And he spoke a lot about meditation, and I used to do a lot of meditation with Yoga Steve. And he taught me an awful lot about actually just focusing on breathing and everything such as that. And that's the techniques that I use. Now other people might use different things, they might use different ways, and I think it's a very personal thing. It's a bit like ghost hunting, isn't it? It's what works for you. And when we do investigations, we work in a very similar way, whereas other people do it completely differently, which is fine, because that's what works for them. But thinking of stories about it, one of the things that's kind of has happened to me a few times now, which is really, really strange, is I'll go to bed, and when I go to, you know me, I can sleep. So get into bed, and
that sounds weird.
yeah. Excuse me, so I'll get into bed, and I'll almost, and I'm aware of it now. I'm lying in bed and I'll wake up, but I'm not awake. And I'll feel myself sometimes. It feels like as though something's like dragging me out of the bed. So almost like somebody's got hold of your foot and they're pulling you out of it. And other times, if I wake up in that kind of half sleep, half awake state, this is what I do now. I roll out of bed. Now that sounds really weird. And I'll roll, and then I look, and I can see myself asleep. And this has happened quite a few times now. And then I'll go round the house, through the doors. You can just go straight through the doors. It's quite funny.
So it's astral?
And honestly, and the other nights it happened to me literally 4 days ago, and the house is very, very dark. Now, actually, to be honest with you, the only thing about it which has been a little bit scary is once or twice when I've been there, I've been downstairs. And the house is strange, because when you go round the house in it, it's like my house, but it's the same layout, but there's different things in there. There's different decorations. It looks a lot older than, you've been in my house a lot, but it looks a lot, and it is an very old house, but the decorations and everything look older. But it's almost like when you go around, when you walk around the house and it's that kind of very early morning, it's like a blue light.
Yeah.
It's very much like that. And I watched if you ever see the Insidious films, and it's very, very grey light.
Yeah.
It's just like that. So what thing I always do is now if I do it, I always try and make myself go downstairs and go out of the front door. And
I hope you're dressed.
well, I don't know, but anyway, so it happened the other night, and but when I went downstairs and I went to the front room, there was this figure that was in there, really kind of horrible looking thing. It was all shadow, with kind of red eyes and fingers, you know. And it kind of went towards me, and I just said, "Go away," and went, you know, put my hands out towards it, and off it went. Anyway, when I went outside, I looked up at the sky, and it was like the most vivid kind of, you know, when you see pictures of galaxies and there's all the colours and everything, the sky was just like that and shimmering. And I kind of, it sounds really bizarre, flew up into the sky, and suddenly you're surrounded, but it's so vivid.
You've seen it fly out?
Yeah, and I flew up into the sky, and it's so vivid, and it's not like a dream because you're consciously aware of it, and you know, and there is, you know, a genuine thing of lucid dreaming, and it could just be that.
Well, Mark does lucid, you know,
and
dreaming.
it absolutely. So whether it is astral projection or it is just, you know, a really you know, a really vibrant lucid dream, I don't know. But from an experience, because you know you can do it, and you go up and you think, wow, like this, it's the most beautiful things and so vivid. And then when you kind of start waking up again, those colours are so vivid in your eyes. And it amazes me, absolutely amazes me. So where I need to kind of get to the point of doing is where I can go, keep doing the astral projection stuff and actually do it rather than me, you know, actually go into it and see if I can get further with that. But I find it absolutely fascinating. And you know me, I'm pretty sceptical about stuff. And I think, well, you know, maybe it is just lucid dreaming or it is just all in your mind. But I tell you something, even if it is that, crikey, what an interesting thing that your mind is actually creating.
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, you know?
Well, there's a lot of things we don't know, you know, we're still learning. Now, a friend of mine, John Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
He can do astral projection.
Yeah.
And he's the only one I've ever heard of who's gone out and he's basically said what you just said.
Yeah.
About he goes and flies around and he can visit houses and do all that. And you basically gave the same thing. Now, you've never really
I
spoken to him.
don't think I've
ever
met John, actually. No,
so,
not at all.
It's fascinating for me because there's two individuals never met given the same kind of explanation. Slightly different in explanation, but everyone's different. You know, his astral projection, he might be going to visit family or doing this, whereas you're just starting off. You might get to the point where you will be able to go and see things.
Maybe you know, maybe you can, and I think the interesting thing about it is that it's so it's just so fascinating, and I've got, and the great thing about it is that you literally, you know, you don't have to go out anywhere. You just literally lie in your bed or somewhere comfortable, and do it, and the couple of times, you know, the times where I've been in the house and I've gone outside. I mean, one of them was really, really funny, and I was on about this with some friends of mine. I said it was really weird because exactly the same thing happened. But this time I didn't roll out of bed. I kind of sat up, and then realised that I was sat up, but I wasn't. It was my, if you like, energy body rather than, you know. Or if let's say that this was a lucid dream or whatever. So I went downstairs. And when I opened the door, in the front garden was this big umbrella, right? And the umbrella was like floating, and probably about, like, you know, shoulder height. The handle of it was. So I went over and grabbed hold of it, and it just flew up into the sky.
Mary Poppins.
Yeah, it was like Mary Poppins. It was, but I was in all these stars, and you could see down below, and kind of, and you were, but then there was other things that you were seeing and everything. And it was again really, really vivid, and I remember it so clearly. When you wake, it's not like dreams where you forget it. When you wake up, you remember every detail of it. The only thing that's a bit scary about it sometimes is that I have seen some quite spooky things as well when I was doing it. Now, when you talk about astral projection, there's a lot of talk about astral entities. And these aren't necessarily kind of, if you like, spirits of people, they're entities that kind of are drawn and lower level, you know, as we might say when we're doing, I mean, we're recording this tonight in Mill Street Barracks, and we know that we've encountered things in here that are very bizarre and stuff over the years that we've done it. Now, with I've seen the things that I've seen. One of them was a huge bang on the window, on the front window of the bedroom. Boom, boom, boom. And
Was this
was in the kind of like sequence of it, if you like. Yeah. And when I looked outside, it was this absolutely grotesque floating head, and it had like a big pointed nose and very sinister eyes, and a hat and a big grin, and it was butting the window and going boom, 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 and that was really scary. And then once there was this other thing that was downstairs. I told you about the one before with the shadow thing. I've seen them a few times. I'll come on to that shadow thing in a minute. But the other one that was really creepy was about 3 weeks ago, and it didn't scare me because I just told it to go away. I woke up, or I felt I was awake, and where my bed is, if I'm sleeping on my left side, I can see the bedroom door, but the bedroom door opens towards me. It's on that wall. So the bedroom door slowly opens. It was quite dark in the room, slowly opens, and the next minute, grey fingers with big nails come round the door. And then after that, this thing came in, which I can only describe as this haggard old woman. She was only little, with a big grin and laughing. And it didn't scare me. I went to it and just, I won't repeat what I said to it. And off it went. But it got me thinking the next day about, if you read online, on forums and things, there's thousands. I mean, you've heard of old hag syndrome before, with sleep paralysis and things.
Yeah, where they're on top,
yeah, and the hag has been seen for, hundreds of years. But the really common one is shadow people, and one of them is one known as the Hat Man. And I've seen the Hat Man in when I've done this before. I genuinely have seen it. And he's seen all over the world. Not all across the world. People have seen him, and he's a shadow person. Sometimes he's got kind of reddish eyes, and he has a wide-brimmed hat.
Would it be the same person, or could there be a numerous of these?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the interesting thing about the Hat Man is that he's so widely seen. This is why I find it interesting, because you'll see people who've posted and they've said, and I've seen loads of posts like this. Last night, I was in bed, I couldn't move, I was in sleep paralysis, and I saw this man, this big tall guy, with all shadow with a hat on, and this has really confused me. Has anyone seen this before? I've seen, read this, read that. So the question is really, is it, why is it that people are seeing this particular thing across the world? What is that?
And they're people who are not connected to each other.
They're not connected. And the thing is, as well, as if you think about the attire of what he's seen, it's always very similar. And actually, really, it's not an attire that most people don't really wear wide brim hats.
No.
It's not something that a lot of people wear. So why would they all be seeing it?
I've seen it in horror films. They use the Hat Man in horror films.
He is being used in horror films.
If I didn't know you, James, and you were telling me this, I'd be thinking, what are you on?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
And that's the way you think. And what is amazing to me, like I said, does you and me mate John Kennedy have both explained. And he said he's been into the stars.
Oh,
and things
I can't express how vivid it was. Now, what I'm absolutely not saying is, I'm not saying that I'm kind of going on to some kind of, the thinking behind it is that that's what you do. You astral project to the spirit to different astral planes, but I don't know whether it is or not. And to be honest with you, I'm not particularly that. Isn't why I'm necessarily interested in it. It's more about just the experiences that you get from it, and whether it's just it is just your mind doing it, or something else.
Do you mean like you're dreaming it?
Yeah, regardless whether it's just really very vivid dreams or something like that, or it's something else. I think that experience to have is absolutely, I nearly swore then, amazing. So I'm not actually bothered whether it's whether it's anything that's more kind of like metaphysical or not. I think just the experience of it is great, and I'm so interested in it because I've seen these things and everything, and it's just dead exciting, The only thing I would say is that I do find that sometimes it does drain me a little bit.
Yeah.
So you have to be quite quite energised when you're doing it, because if you don't, when you relax, you just fall asleep. You know, but honestly, Jamie, I mean, I said to you, I think we should do a session one night where I'll talk you through the meditation that I use, and to see if you start just
on
to
here?
see. Well,
On the radio?
we could do it on the radio, but the problem is that it's quite long. But it would be really interesting to kind of, you know, to do that with you, and then we can talk about it on the radio show to see what you experienced.
Okay, I'm up for that.
Because I think that actually, me doing it the technique that I used, and you seeing what you start to get, and the good thing about the meditation is, it's not one of those meditations where it's a visual. I tell you stuff to visualise. Yeah. You know, you walk through a forest or whatever. It's not that. It's purely about whatever you're coming with.
A lot of people think my head's in the clouds all the time.
Well, I didn't want to say.
They're not going to know any much difference, are they?
But it is. It's very, very interesting, and I'll be interested to see them. And the more I've been doing it, I do feel like when I was saying to you before we went for a little walk, I do feel like I'm becoming more. Like I don't know whether more sensitive or something like that. I don't know really. It's interesting. I just think it's kind of like your perceptions of things change. You know.
And when you think like that, coming to the paranormal as well as the astral projection, where would that fit in with the paranormal? Because we were down in the cellar because there's a group in, and that's why we're here. We were down in the cellar, and you were saying to me, you can see things.
Well, when I say I can see them, I can't see them as I see you now. Yeah. I almost get like it's almost like as though I get a mental image in my mind.
Like a visual,
like as in, like something will go into my mind and it'll be like I can visualise an image of a person, and then I almost can imagine that person. Let's say like now a footballer. I don't know why I picked football, but whatever, you know. And I imagine them stood over there by that TV where we are. And that's what it's like, but it's not kind of me thinking it. It's almost like, bump, there it is, which is quite interesting, really. You know, but the thing is that I almost kind of, the problem is that if it happens, I question myself an awful lot. So I think, oh, it's just this or that. And what I'm trying to do at the minute is just to go with it, because if it isn't anything, and it's not real, it's just me imagining it, then it doesn't really matter anyway, because it's but to actually see if anything, purely from my own interest. If I was to see something and describe something that then somebody else knew, it would be a little bit of evidence for me, you know. So
on one of the shows, I'm going to get you and my son Mark together. Yeah. Because he can do lucid dreams. Wow. So if you can talk and he can talk, you might be able to do like a comparison and talk. I'll just sit back and listen to you because that'd be great. And then see if lucid, because if you think about lucid dreams and astral projection, they've got similarities.
Very, very similar.
But Mark says when he's doing a lucid dream, he's in control.
Well, you are in control.
Are you in control when you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
you could turn around.
It's not like it's not like you're just following the track of the dream. You are in. You know, you're aware you're in it, and that's the thing. I wouldn't say it's not so much you're in control, because I think when you're in a dream, you don't know you're dreaming. You're still kind of controlling things. But with this, you're aware that you are in this state, and that's the key thing with lucid dreaming is lucid dreaming is where you know you're in it. Yeah. So you're aware that you are. You're not just in a day like a dream, if you like. So
I'm trying to get my head around it, because obviously I can't do that. I'm looking forward to having a go. What you've explained, but can you turn around and say, I think if I can do this, or you're getting used to it now. You're just getting, you're learning it now. Do you think in time, or you can do it now, is turn around and say, I think I'll go to the Bahamas. I think I'll go to Australia, or
I don't know, because I haven't got to anything like I think if you did do that, the whole point of it is that you're on the astral plane, right? Which is, it's supposed to be a different, it's supposed to be kind of a different kind of, if you imagine it as kind of like layers of a cake, and you've got the bottom layer, then cream, then it's almost like different layers. So we're on one, and then there's another one. Now, if you so the cream is very different to the sponge. Yeah. So actually, but it's still within the same thing. So it might be that kind of, if you're in the, this is my understanding of it, that if I went to Australia, or if I go around St Helens even, where we are now, it wouldn't necessarily look the same as what it does to us because because you work in a different vibration and everything like that.
So you could end up back in the 18th century scene.
Well, you could see all sorts of things. I mean, I've seen, it's like I keep saying about my house looking different inside. So sometimes when I look at it, I think, am I seeing like layers of things that have changed over the years that have all come up because it's it's not, it obviously doesn't look like it does now.
Yeah, because you're going into the vibrations of that
the
building.
vibration of that building.
The person you've seen sitting, it might have been someone who lived there.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And my house is 150 odd years old, so even though there's still original features in there, what the living room looked like in in 1890 would look very different to what it does today. But then if you're seeing all that together, so and I genuinely don't know the answers to this, and this is where I find it really, really interesting.
Oh yeah,
to do.
Yeah. Tell you what, James, let's just make a break, and I'll put that advert what you made a while ago.
Then,
Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's go for the break.
If you'd like to join our Facebook community, why not search for Access Paranormal Radio Podcast? There's always something very spooky going on the Access Paranormal Facebook page.
So
James, do you remember doing that advert?
Well, it was years ago now.
I know, yeah. I've still got it. I'm still using it.
I know, yeah.
Well, it never dies off, does it? If you do, well, before we carry on, James, if we do, if you hear people behind us, they're not ghosts.
The people
walking
for
around.
ghosts.
Yeah, the people who are going to be doing a ghost hunt tonight. Just in the background there. So, James, we've done the astral projection.
We have. We've been speaking about all things astral.
I thought you were going to say all things Brighton. so you were going to say something before.
Well, I was going to ask you a question actually because I was thinking about this. Now we've done loads and loads of ghost hunts, right? And you're going to hate me for asking you this: what is the most fakery that you've seen? Because we know it happens.
Yeah,
we know that people fake things, and sometimes I think people do it on purpose, either for attention or whatever, which I think is pointless because it's just a waste of money if you're going to do that.
Yeah, and
I think people sometimes, you don't think that sometimes people do it but actually genuinely believe it as what What do you think some of the worst fakeries that you've seen?
I've seen quite a few, and I won't drop people in and that.
Yeah.
But one of the ones what stands out to me was once I was on an investigation, and these people come along, and they got some A4 paper out with the alphabet on it. One A4 was A, another one was B, another one was C. And you put them like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, like that, down in a long line. Oh, I've never seen this before. This should be interesting. No. And he ruffles in his bag, and he grabs a load of sticks. So I thought, oh, what's going on? So I carried on. I was watching. He was like talking to his colleague and everything else. And then his colleague gets a little notepad out and his pen out. I'll write down. And he calls out to the whatever's around, throws the sticks everywhere. I was going, what the hell? And the sticks went all over the letters and everything else, right? It was, and he had zeros, it was 1 to 0.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I've never seen this. I've never seen it from that day to this since. And as he was picking the sticks up, he was going A, C, F, another one on A, and a blah, blah, blah. And the other fellow was writing them down in the book.
Yeah.
Then you were making words from them, and it was like anagrams. And I said to him,
that sounds like one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard.
How does that work? And he went, oh, well, if you think about it, the writing, you throw them up, and it's whichever way you pick them up. The words,
you can just pick
up a word. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's basically what they were doing. And I went, wow. And he said, what do you think? He said, because like we invented this. And I'm going, we invented this idea. And I went, well, everyone's different. I said, what can you say? You can't say that's a load of what's name.
No, absolutely.
You know, I turned around and said, well, everyone does paranormal investigations different, and if that's what you want to do, great. If that's the way you think. And I said, but you know, I said, I can't really comment on what you do because it's the first time I've ever seen it work. I said, and diplomatically, I turned around and said, I'd have to see it a few more times. And he went, yeah, let's do it again. I went, oh, why did I say that?
Well, you know what though, but there's an interesting thing there with that one, isn't there? Because they might believe that works.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like what I'm saying is that they might have come up with that, and actually, even though we might think it's a bit bizarre,
rubbish, yeah.
In their mind, they might genuinely think, "Oh, I've come up with this thing, and actually that does work." So, so they're not necessarily faking it on purpose. They're just doing it because it's something that they've come up with. And I think kind of I've seen that a lot where I've seen, and how many times we've been doing ghost hunts where we've had people go on Ouija boards and things, board, and it's going all over the place. But sometimes, we've been in and we've had somebody in the group who's been one of them people who's been like, talking over everybody. And then as soon as they go on the Ouija board, who is the spirit there to see? It's there to see them and everything. We've had this loads of times. And it comes up with really clear messages. Now we've done loads of glass divination, and you know how long it takes for it to normally actually start getting any movement.
Very rare it's happened to us.
Yeah. Whereas when I see somebody go on it and it just goes straight away, and it's just somebody who I've already thought they are the one who's going to say that it's happening to them. But again, I don't know whether they're just doing it for attention or they genuinely believe it. Or they're actually maybe they're being truthful. I don't know.
Okay, I get what you're saying there because you can't really say whether they are faking it or believing it. But I think the one fake one I've seen and heard and was involved in, not involved in it as I was faking it. Is it ousted? Ousted? Ousted?
Well, I don't know, you outed.
Outed, that's the word, yeah. And this fella, and I don't know whether I've said this on the radio before, if we have...
Is your medium?
Yeah, if I have, go make yourselves a cup of tea, it'll only be about 2 minutes. This medium comes along, and I'm welcoming that, and I said, do you want me to tell bits and pieces? And he went, nope, I'm the best medium you'll ever meet.
Oh, right, yeah.
And this, that and the other. And he'd done this a few times, he shut me down a couple of times. So anyway, cut a long story short, I was walking along with this woman who was on the investigation, and I was telling her this story about the ghost dog having 3 legs. And this so-called medium was in front. And obviously I was whispering to the woman, so he didn't hear me. But enough that I knew he could hear me.
Right, yeah.
And I said that the dog clunked. You could tell he was coming. He had a wooden leg, and he clunked down the stairs. And when he goes into the cell, you can hear it clunking. And there's a stream at the end of the cellar. There's a spring, a little tiny spring.
You can hear it splashing.
Splashing, and you know the story.
Yeah.
And the next minute he comes down, and he comes and joins the group. He sits there and that, and he starts coming up with these things, and he went, oh, my guide is telling me this, and my guide is telling me that. Now I'm going to ask you, is there a 3-legged Donny? And I went, oh yeah, there is, like that. And then he goes, there's something strange about this 3-legged dog. My guide's telling me. Did this dog have a wooden leg? Have you ever known a dog to have a wooden leg?
Never.
Unless it's
because they walk on 3.
Yeah. So I said, oh, wow, like that. And he went, yeah. He said, and you can tell where it is because it makes clunking noises. And he said, and you've heard it coming down the stairs.
So, here's a question for you.
But,
right,
as we were walking back out, the woman who was walking down with, she turned around to me and she elbowed me slightly and she went, that story you told us was a load of rubbish, wasn't it? I said, yeah. I said, but he's the best medium you'll ever meet.
Wouldn't it be interesting, though, if you'd have turned around and said, yeah, that story's made up. I made it up. I'd love to see what they would do, but I think they would just go on the defensive then and say, well, you know, I'm picking up on this or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you've seen there's a program with Danny. Oh my word!
You know about Uncanny?
Uncanny, yeah.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? Yeah.
But before he done,
He did what
he
did one, didn't he?
He done one, and he
with
took
mediums
mediums
and stuff,
in.
and they'd made all stuff up, hadn't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
So if you get it, Danny.
I
Oh
can't
my
remember
God.
his name, but he did it where they went in. They made up it was like an old factory or something, didn't they? And they
Yeah.
all came up with the.
Do you know what? I need to find his name now,
Yeah.
Danny. I always remember it, except at the moments that I really need to not remember it. Do you
But
know
it
what I
is,
mean?
the thing is though, is that like, you know, you're in it or they're all coming out of that. For everyone who's listening, we're currently just sat up in the top room, which is nice and warm. And there's a group who are in doing a ghost hunt tonight, and they've just come out of the cellar, and they're all standing in a circle now. So they're probably all going to be terrified in about half an hour's time. What do you reckon, Jamie?
Yeah. Danny Robbins. Yeah.
Ah, yeah. So also,
Yeah.
thinking about that though, I just think it's a waste, because I think if you're interested in something, like, what's the point in
Faking it.
yeah,
Debunking
because
it.
if you're faking it, the only way reason, and if you're knowingly doing it, the only reason
Yeah.
you're doing that is so you get something out of it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
you're probably like me. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube now.
Mm.
And there's 3 debunkers I watch.
Mm.
And Beardo,
Oh, Beardo, yeah,
Yeah.
it's in Beardo. Yeah.
Ethos,
I haven't seen that one.
and a fellow called the Side-Eye Guy.
Oh, yeah, I've seen
They
some.
can be
yeah.
ruthless,
Mm.
but sometimes I think, oh, that was a bit below the belt and things like that. But the debunkers, and it makes it more healthy for the
Well,
paranormal.
the thing is though is that we're like, I've seen so many different things, but a lot of them I can explain,
Mm.
and I still think like there's a lot of things that happen that I can't explain, and I think that's really healthy to do that, because you know I've never been in a room where there's been things being thrown at me. I've never had anything thrown at
No.
me. I've never had anything like kind of, you know, I've never had anything with.
I have from the real world, wouldn't I?
Yeah, but you know, but
Yeah.
but I have seen things. I've heard noises. I've had feelings. Everything like, you know. But I do think that if you're gonna fake it, it's pointless, really, isn't it? If you knowingly, what I'm talking about here, and I've got to be really clear, I'm not talking about people who something, you know, believe in something, because there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. That's fine, because
No,
they're not faking it. You might look at it in a skeptical eye and say, well, that might not be real. But they're
Yeah.
not doing it with that intention. But if somebody's knowingly faking something, you know, not knowingly going in there and setting something up or whatever, then, and you're doing that ghost hunts for yourself, I just don't see the point. You may as well not bother.
Well, do you remember the time we were doing an investigation and we were getting the knocks?
I do
In
remember
the cellar.
that. And we found out it was
And
someone.
we found out it was someone because it was too
It was too
precise.
wasn't it? Yeah.
And I said, I'll tell you what, we're getting all these knocks. I cottoned on. And I
Yeah.
said, let's try with the lights on.
And it didn't happen.
And nothing happened at all.
Yeah.
As soon as we turned the lights off, then knocks were back again.
It started again. If you remember, we also said, everyone link hands,
Yeah,
and it stopped.
and it stopped. And then the person who we knew it was left.
They did, and that's
He
right. I
went
remember
home.
that. Yeah, they
He
went
left,
home.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like.
And that is,
because
but
it's-
that is where I then think, what is the point? What is the point in doing that? Because you're not proving anything to anyone.
And you
Just
paid for that night.
Yeah. You've paid for that night. You're wasting your time. And as I say, I'm not saying there's people might believe in something, and we might look at it from our perception. We might think, oh, I don't believe in that. But if they believe in it, then they're not faking it because they're believing in that. You know, and then I might not personally believe in. You know, you're on about the thing before with the sticks.
Yeah.
That would be something, to be honest, that I would probably be the same as you, and I think, well, I don't think there's anything in it. However, them people who are doing it do believe
Might
that
believe it,
works.
yeah.
So they're not doing it to deceive anybody.
No.
They're doing it because they think it works.
Yeah.
Whereas with you know, and maybe it does, but to us, we probably wouldn't think it would. But if you're knowingly doing, if I'm knowingly going
Yeah.
like that, I'm knowingly doing that. That isn't something that I'm thinking it could be anything.
That happened that night.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And that was clear fakery.
Yeah.
And I've seen it quite a few times, and it's sad.
I mean, I find it fascinating as well where people embellish stories, and kind of
Power of suggestion.
Power of suggestion and stories. I mean, I've had conversations with people in where we are now, Mill Street Barracks, and they've said about tunnels, and I've said to them, they've said, oh, there's a tunnel that goes from here to the church, where they used to take the bodies. And my point is that when you actually think about stuff like that, logic, now there is allegedly a tunnel, somebody told me, used to be in the TA here, that went across from this building over to the studios, because that was the rifle range. That's that makes complete sense, because it would mean that you could take things under for safety. But in terms of a tunnel to the church, why would you go to the effort of excavating a tunnel to a church which is back to back with the building, right? Now, bearing in mind, when this building was first opened, that church that's there now didn't exist as it currently is. Because the people who would have been dying here, there wasn't anything secretive about it if it was when it was a hospital. They were very proud people, and the families were there for them. And they would take, they would have a funeral that would, if they died here, that would take them to the church.
Take a lot of digging.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, they wouldn't have a secret, because there was nothing secretive about it.
No.
Why would they do that? Because it would be, these were people who lived lives, and actually, so logically, when you think about it, and that is, I think when you're interested in history like us, that one of the really difficult things that happens is, well, my dad, my granddad told me that. And people believe it. My granddad said this used to happen there. Now, actually, sometimes when you look into it, there's almost an element of truth in it. But actually, it's been something that there's a story that's been developed over the years, and it's not actually true. But the interesting one I find is about things like that, because I love looking, and I was on about the other day, you've had Claire on here twice, and we've met Claire before.
Claire Rigby.
Claire is brilliant, because what Claire does is, if she hears something, she goes and she researches it.
Oh, she's amazing.
And she goes through the newspapers, she goes through the records, and she gets to the bottom of it. So if she's a story about something, she'll actually look properly into it. And that's and this is where I think that, like, sometimes people if you're going to do an investigation, you absolutely should have as much knowledge as you can. Because if you spend all night looking for something that's a made up, that's a rumour that doesn't exist, you've wasted your time.
The big example to that is the angry man.
Yeah, the angry man. Yeah.
You were talking to a young couple earlier on who travelled quite a distance, to be honest with
Milton
you, to be
Keynes,
here.
they've come
Milton Keynes. And I mentioned the angry man to them. Now, a lot of people go, "Oh, you've been here," and people said, "Oh, there's the angry man down in the cellar."
Well, I've never experienced it.
There's no angry man in the cellar. The painting called The Angry Man was brought here and was put in the cellar to see if there was any kind of response, like an experiment.
Yeah.
That's the angry man, not an angry man who's down there going to get out, man, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where people are sometimes perceived.
Yeah.
And, if I go on the internet, sometimes it annoys me when I see some of the stories.
We might have to talk a little bit quieter just with them people being
just turn the lights.
Turn the lights on.
Oh, they turn the lights off, yeah.
Yeah. I hope they have. No, the ghosts are Do you want to put that blind down, Jamie?
Yeah, I'll put the blind down. So apologies to the listeners for a minute.
We just.
There you go. Oops. Done it too
Jamie's done a terrible job of putting the blind down. No, but I think you're right, and I think the thing is as well.
I thought I did a blinder.
I think the thing is as well is that the historical side of it is really important to get a grasp on. I'm really interested, and you were big into that. But with all the stuff we've done here, and some of the stories that people have told me, I've got to say what I've experienced as being kind of I felt like there was somebody in this room then with us, for a second. It was a bit weird.
Oh, I'll tell you something in a minute.
Is we've seen Claire, which I don't think she's here as much as she used to be. Because she used to be when I first started doing
all the time.
She used to be all the time. I've seen that thing that we used to call, Liz White used to always call it the crawler, and I call it that low down thing. Yeah. I've seen shadowy things. We've seen the shadow, Marie's seen the shadow. And we've had entities and stuff like that, really kind of strange things that have come in. But I've never seen I've never seen an angry man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never seen an angry man or anything like
Yeah.
that. That's not to say it doesn't exist, but again, I've never, people. There's a lot of talk and say, oh well, there's children here. No, I've personally never experienced that.
No. Well, I'll tell you what. In our next show, we'll talk about Mill Street and what we know about it. Not too much though, James, but we'll talk a bit about Mill Street, and we'll talk about other locations as well.
Yeah, it felt like somebody walked into the room then.
I was going to say to you then, one time I was here, right? And I was sitting up here where we are, we're upstairs out the way because there's a group on. And I was sitting here and I went, whoa, the room's just gone cold. And in the corner of me, I thought I seen something move there. I went, oh, it's just my imagination. Anyway, I seen the lights coming on out there and I thought, so I'll go down and see how they're getting on.
Yeah.
So when I went down, there was just a couple. I thought everybody else would be coming up. But no, they were coming up to do something. And so they turned the lights on because I think they were going to put the urn on or do something, while the rest of them come up. As I was coming down the stairs, I said, how did you get on? And he went, oh, it's great. She said, can I ask you something? And I said, yeah, of course you can. She said, that balcony up there, do you ever see anybody up there? And I said, well, people have said they have. And she said, about 5 minutes ago, a couple of minutes ago, she said, we seen someone walk into the door.
Oh, wow.
Walk through the door into here.
Oh, and you'd been here.
And it was the same. No, it was the same time as I felt the coldness, and I felt as if somebody walked in the room.
That's really strange, isn't it?
So you think to yourself, that's quite good evidence.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, you had to be there to say that's evidence. It's very difficult to prove it, but that's exactly what I'm saying. And that was enough proof for me.
Absolutely, yeah.
The other week I was sitting here again when the groups are on. I sit up here, and he had this. What was that? Was it? You look around like that. So I ignored it. Thought, oh, it must have been just squeaking. I had the telly on. Yeah. I looked. The door handle to the storeroom went down and up.
Did it?
Yeah. I won't tell you how I felt at the time, James, but the nearest toilets would have been fantastic. Be
alright if we did it now. It's right in front of me.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. But it's good to have these conversations because we don't. How often do we do this? We don't.
Well,
do
this is it.
Doing an investigation when it gets warmer. We're going out and do some more
this is it. I mean, the problem is it is Baltic at the minute, isn't it? This weather.
Tell me about it.
I think it's hard because it's you ask the golfer to make the room go colder when it's only minus 10.
Yeah.
It's you don't really want it, do you?
Why do we ask them to make it go colder? Why don't we say make it go warmer?
Well, you know what? Actually, I read a book once, and it was, was it a book or was it? It might have been. It's hard to remember, isn't it? I think I don't know. It might have been something I was listening to somebody talking about, and they said that they think the reason it makes you go cold is because when the spirit comes near you, what it does is it draws your energy off, which makes you go colder.
Right.
So it draws your energy, so like your auric field, and it makes you feel colder. That's what it said.
Right,
Then I've had it
okay.
before where it's gone really, really warm.
Yeah, sound logic.
I mean, I don't really know, to be honest. Excuse me.
Am I keeping you up?
No, you are, yeah. But no, it is fascinating, isn't it? I kind of think about sometimes,
It was my stomach.
No, but there was a tap then. Did you hear it?
No,
Oh, did you? Was that you?
Yeah, it was me.
It sounded like a tap over there. It didn't spruce you though, how the acoustic and things.
Yeah.
I going back to what we were saying about, people making stuff up and things like that. I think some people really are very desperate to believe and experience something.
Or attention seeking.
Or attention seekers. And I think people who are desperate to believe in something are not doing anything with an intent to deceive anybody. I don't think they're doing it for those reasons. They just want to experience something and believe in it. But I think the ones who want to do it for attention and things, I think it's really sad because it's not fair on all the other people who are doing it. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's not. And when you think people pay for investigations, they want honesty. If they go away and nothing's happened, nothing's happened. If they go away and something has happened, genuinely, even better.
And it's it's hard because ultimately, people like a ghost hunt now, they're not cheap because
No, they're not.
The people who run them, you've got to pay for the venues, they've got insurance, all sorts of these things, and just, they're not cheap at all. And the thing is that actually, and I think sometimes it's tricky because, if people are paying 60, 70 quid for a ticket and then, nights where nothing happens, it can be disappointing for people. But ultimately, you're selling an empty room, aren't you?
Yeah.
In essence, you're selling an empty building with people going to see what they can find. And as we know, some nights we'll have it where we'll have loads happening, and some nights where we go and there's nothing.
But you've got to think, we say we're selling an empty room. It's not.
Well, you're selling an experience. That's the
and a bit of
know.
excitement and intrepidation and things like that. Because I remember the first investigation I went on, and it was over in Newton Community Centre.
Yeah.
And the enjoyment, even if nothing would have happened, it was just the enjoyment of sitting there in the dark.
Oh, it's great. It's great
Trying
fun.
to get the investigations. And even now, I still get the same enjoyment as I did when I first started
I actually find it weirdly relaxing,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I do. Not all the time, but
Yeah.
I think the only thing is with it is that sometimes, I think one of the things that I've found with, over the years that I've done it is, I think it's very rare you do an investigation where you get a consistently high level. If you've got activity happening at a high level all night, it kind of goes up and then peaks and trots, And we've had it before where we'll have like a big load of stuff and then it'll just flatten off, And whether that's because of the group, I don't know.
And, I mean, you've been in this building with us many a times, and you walk and you go, doesn't feel right here tonight.
Absolutely,
the atmosphere has changed.
Yeah.
And then you'll come in some nights and you go, it's dead calm here.
Well, you know what? It's funny because like before when we've been in, and we've not been upstairs, but we went down for a little walk down into the cellar, and I have to say the cellar didn't feel, apart from the stuff that's normally around there, didn't feel any weird atmosphere down there tonight. Now whether that'll change when they start doing their ghost hunts, who knows?
Well, before you came, I went down the cellar on my own, and I never used to want to do that.
Yeah.
But I felt quite calm tonight, and I opened the door, went down to the cellar, made sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
And then I came back up, and not once did I think, what am I doing here on my own?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And sometimes I'll go down and go,
sometimes it has a feeling where you just don't want to do it. And you go into, now, we've had it before where we've been in certain areas and we think, this doesn't feel right in here tonight. But then other times where, I've had it in where we've done night tea where I've fell asleep. Because I've been that relaxed.
Well, to be honest with you, sometimes when I'm staying here and there's groups in, you get on, this tea is quite comfortable.
Yeah, it is really comfortable.
And I was lying there, I was watching the YouTube, and I must have just conked out.
Yeah.
And there was only somebody banging on the door, and I jumped on. But when you're disorientated, and you're going, what was that?
Yeah.
And it was just them saying, you've packed up everything and there we go. And I'm going, oh God, I've got to now check everywhere on my own.
That's it, yeah, you've got to go around everywhere, haven't you?
Yeah, but I think it's because I'm here so long, so many times, that you get used to it. You know when you're going to feel relaxed and when you're not going to be relaxed.
Yeah. My thing in this building think is the creepiest bit is when you have to go into the cellar and you have to turn the light off in the cellar at the bottom of the stairs because you can't turn it off at the top.
It's halfway.
It's halfway, and then you've got to get to the top, and you've got to turn that one off, and then you've got to turn that one off, and then if the lights aren't on that deck, you've got to walk all the way across.
Oh, it's horrible.
And no, I just heard a tap there then on the glass. No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it my stomach? No,
it wasn't. It was behind me. Is there anybody here? Can you tap again?
I think it's my stomach, James.
No, it was behind me over there.
Was it?
It absolutely was. If there's somebody tapping on the window, can you tap again?
Mm-hmm. I can hear my stomach going.
I can hear your stomach going. Yeah.
But I've enjoyed tonight's conversation. We're going to have to carry it on in the next show, James.
We will. It's
nice.
nice.
Not that many different yaps about.
It's nice having a good chat.
It is, and we can't get out and about like we do. I mean, imagine if we'd have gone for a walk on Friday to do ghost hunts.
Yeah, it was windy.
We'd have been part of the ghost hunts. Yeah.
Because imagine doing that. Well, yeah, it was bad, wasn't it? But I mean, I think it's you know what? If you think about why you're interested in this kind of stuff,
yeah,
it's just because it's just like it's absolutely like crackers, isn't it? At times, like you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I mean, I sometimes think to myself, like, Craigie, why am I sat in this blooming cold, dark, damp, stinky room asking for things that I can't see to make a noise? You know.
And it's funny, isn't it? And I've said this many a time as well. Is we all take our cameras and we take pictures of the rooms, and all's in the room is a chair, a table, and the four walls.
Four walls that
So
are falling down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So half your photographs from paranormal ghost hunters, just derelict buildings. It's basically urban
Now,
exploring.
it's a really quick one because I know we're
Okay.
going to be coming to the end of the show in a minute now. But
Well.
very quickly, do you think that places can be over investigated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so as well.
Maybe
Maybe that's a good thing for us to talk
Yeah.
about what is
Yeah.
over show. Now, very quickly, Jamie, because we're coming to the end of the show, you excitingly have released a book, haven't you?
I have. Yeah. I
Tell
forgot about
everyone
that,
what
to
it
be
is.
honest with you, James. It's only you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon now. It's out there now.
Yeah.
And it's called Paranormal Investigation Logbook and Journal. It goes under the name of Jamie Michael Williams. So don't take the mickey out of me.
I won't do, don't worry, it's
Yeah.
fine.
It's £10, and the reason why it's £10 is because you get free postage with it. So if I'd have done it under £10, you'd have still had to pay the postage, which
Right.
would have rounded it off anyway.
£10
So
to get free post. Oh, that's great.
in the book, you've got, obviously there's an index at the front of it, so you can write down
Yeah.
your locations. There's a record sheet,
Yeah.
equipment, weather,
Mhm.
moon phases, report and evidence,
Yeah.
debunk report. So if you realise you can debunk it, you can note that you
Yeah.
debunked it. Timeline and log of photographs, videos and audios, which means, you know, if you get an EVP, you can say what time it's on, so you can go back to it. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if you go onto Amazon, it's there now. Feel free to go and buy it. I'd love you to go and buy it. And if you do buy it, leave a little comment for us.
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
you can do a signing one day, you never know.
Yeah. Okay. So, James, I think we've come to the end of this week's show.
Yeah, I've
But
come to the end of the show, yeah.
you're coming again now. We're going to you're going to carry on the show with me because we're going next week. We're going to be talking about frightening things that have happened to us, and
Scary things, spooky things.
spooky things, the funny things that
The
have
funny
happened to
things
us.
that happen in the paranormal.
That should be fun
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, James, and to anybody out there who's listening, thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll be back again next week. So from Astral Projection, I was going to say that, from Access Paranormal, good night.
Good night, everyone. Sleep well.